Frank Lampard, I want to get your thoughts on all this. I've just been going through different papers, and it's kind of interesting piecing together the different bits and pieces. So, for instance, Telegraph in front of me, Matt Law, who broke the story initially. It's interesting. Lampard, he says, was given the news by Marina Granovskaya, and she's Chelsea director now, obviously, and very powerful there, aide to Roman Abramovich. So Marina and the chairman, Bruce Buck, gave Lampard the news in person yesterday morning. But what jumped out was he decided against heading straight to Cobham to say goodbye to the players. That jumped out. And then Miguel Delaney in your paper today, he was talking about the atmosphere in the dressing room, and he was saying that word had gotten back to figures upon high that many players did not like how the manager spoke to them. And there were questions about his man management. Communication was a problem, writes Miguel. And later on he says, sources say one influential dressing room voice was, quote, fed up of the manager by Christmas.
Yeah. I think there was also a line in one of the other English papers that equated Lampard sacking to the shooting of Bambi, I think as well. I think that was in the Times of London today. So there seems to be a lot of sympathy for Lampard in the tone of certain of the coverage in the UK, but I feel like, and there's been some incredibly well-sourced stuff on this, the Athletic, to be fair, who probably wouldn't have a reputation necessarily for breaking news stories per se, because the nature of it is it's more club by club and stuff, and there's it's they're not necessarily always sort of regarded as a news site, but they did have a story at the beginning of the month that basically he was seriously under threat, like they were looking at alternatives, and that was sort of reported at the time, and they also have had some very detailed stuff in the last 24 hours, but again similar to the details that you mentioned there. But what I was going to say is, like, it sort of feels like there's a life cycle for every Chelsea manager, and I feel like as being a club that I don't really have any mad interest in, we haven't really had sort of since Damien Duff, we haven't had a sort of a mad Irish angle, an Irish angle there, and it just seems like the same story again and again of like a new manager coming in. The new manager has made a positive impact. I'm sure I remember us doing a piece at some stage about Antonio Conte coming in and talking about his positive influence around the place and so on. And then you fast forward through a period of time, and we're talking about that manager leaving. There's always very good information on how the decision was reached by the various people in the background at Chelsea. Even the fact that how this came out, very swiftly yesterday, if the timelines of the Lampard meeting are true. And there's always a sense that by the end, some of the players had had enough of him. And in some respects, that's probably the story of every managerial exit at any club. This is why a lot of managers have a 3-year cycle. There's the great optimism, and then there's, eventually people out of players that had it with them at the end. But obviously at Chelsea, this cycle seems to be around 18 months long or 12 months long, depending on who you happen to be. And I don't know about you, but you end up feeling very cold about it. Lampard is obviously, there's some sympathy for Lampard in the English press, understandably to some degree, because he's one of their own, and there's a lot. They're probably desperate for an English manager to be managing, one of their own super clubs, which is obviously a rare enough thing that they do. So while the coverage is quite sympathetic, I can understand where that comes from to some degree. But at the same time, it's very hard to sort of be losing much sleep over the injustice of it all. It's just This is Chelsea, and this is what they do. You go in there with your eyes open. I think if you're not, you're naive to where you're working.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you raise about Chelsea, because I think we had this discussion before Lampard went in there, where effectively I just found it very hard to muster any enthusiasm for what they were about. And we're right back to that now. Like Lampard, I was interested in, a bit more invested in, as a neutral. Maybe Chelsea fans don't feel this way at all. I'd be interested, 53106, if they're pretty happy with the constant revolving door and winning a league, to be fair, semi-regularly, like Conte 17, Jose 15. I'd forgotten Jose had won in 15. Jose 15, Ancelotti 10. So 3 league titles in a decade is amazing, and you wouldn't say they felt like a dominant force necessarily in this decade as opposed to the previous one, but they've won 3 league titles. So maybe Chelsea fans think that's great, and a Champions League in there as well, and maybe they're happy enough. But I don't know, there's just almost no journey with Chelsea, or no stint. Like, aside from Jose Mourinho, which Chelsea manager has gone past the 2-year marker under Abramovich, aside from Jose?
How long did Conte last?
2 years exactly.
2 years exactly. Oh, sorry. Is this more a question, or you have the answer sat in front of you there?
I have the answer.
Oh, you do? Okay. Ancelotti?
The answer is nobody.
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 No, what do goose hitting stints add up to in months' time? No, not very much, I assume.
Yeah, so I'll give it to you here. We had Jose 04 to 07. We then had Avram Grant 07 to 08 in the Champions League final. Louis-Philippe Scolari, who could forget? Scolari, yeah. July 08 to February 09, so he lasted less than a year. Then Hiddink came in the February and went to May, so he was gone February to May. Then Carlo Ancelotti won a league title, got his 2 years. June to May, he just missed out, just shy of 2 years. And then Andre Villas-Boas came in June 11 and lasted to March 12. Then Di Matteo, of course, and the Champions League. So he did March 12 and they won the Champions League, but he was gone by November. Then Rafa came in November and he was gone by May. Then Jose came back, June 2013, and won the league in 15, but was gone by December after winning the league. Gus Hiddink, December 15, lasted till May. Then Conte came in, he was July 16 to July 18. And then Sarri, July 2018 to June 2019. It gets a bit boring reading all these dates out on the radio. You get the point, nobody. And so you kind of wonder, I mean, again, maybe this is not for Chelsea fans, but certainly as onlookers, why would you just have any interest in Chelsea or the new Chelsea manager? Certainly, there's no era coming is the problem. Like, there's no Thomas Tuchel era coming. So why form an attachment? Why get that interested? Even as a fan, like, I think the whole point of a fan, or the whole point of supporting a club, is to fall in love with a given team and a given manager at a given point of your life, and to go on a bit of a journey on them that's going to last more than a few months. Like Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool. And he's into his 6th year now. Like that, we're talking an era. So when I say an era, I don't mean Alex Ferguson. I don't even mean 10 years anymore, because that ship has sailed. I just mean 5-6 years of a journey, a proper chance for ups and downs and successes maybe, or some failures in there. And yet Chelsea, I mean, the model kind of works, so you can't quibble with the league titles in effect, but you do at a certain point say, what is the point of this? This is actually a mercenary culture at its most refined and developed, at its most routine and hollow, and it's not unsuccessful. I accept that. So this isn't a conversation about, well, you have to give a manager time and you have to give a manager control over the transfers for success. That's not that kind of old school conversation. It's almost to a degree you can level it at any Premier League company, because they are now a company, and a global company at that. What's the point? You know, in some ways, what is the point? The days of local lads and all that stuff are quite antiquated in places. Yeah. But there are some, obviously, exceptions. But you kind of think, well, what is the point when it comes to Chelsea? There's no journey. There's no something to get involved in for a couple of years of your life. And as a fan, and to round it all off, I guess, the thing is, what carried them through for a number of years was Mourinho came in and created something incredible, you know, in terms of a team, and it was Lampard and it was Terry and it was Drogba, and those players built around that spine. And even when Jose went, they were still that team, you know, and they overshadowed the managers in some ways. And so I was really interested in the Terry, Lampard, Drogba team. And when they won the Champions League in 12, I was delighted for them. Like, there's a lot to be kind of anti-Roman Abramovich about, and, you know, you can have qualms over that. But I loved Lampard as a player, and quite liked Drogba. And I was happy to see them win the Champions League. And I was like, God, that was an interesting 8 years from 04 to 12. But since that group have gone, and the revolving door has now gone from manager to also the playing group, I'm just kind of looking at Chelsea, and it's really hard to muster much enthusiasm, because, Dan, in 2 years or less, we're doing a piece on Tuchel's departure.
Well, yeah, I mean, what you're basically saying is, are they happy? That's basically that's effectively what you've said. Like,
yeah,
it wasn't worth it. But like, at the same time, you can flip it and say, say for example, the Champions League win in 2012, Di Matteo, and the Jose League win. But the Jose League win was followed by like the Dr. Eva Carnaro case, and Di Matteo just unravelled. And in some cases, you can see why those people had to go, even if it was so short after their period of success. But I know exactly what you're saying, but with some respects, it is like a product of the Abramovich era, that instability. But if it wasn't for that Abramovich money, as you say, Chelsea wouldn't have sampled those highs. Chelsea might still be the Chelsea of the late 90s and early 2000s, who were okay. But they would have been able to compete really in this Premier League era. And Chelsea spent more than anyone last summer, I think. There was even a suggestion that Abramovich might have been losing a small bit of interest, and that seemed to have gone. And he's back and he's engaged again. And I know he had his own issues going on, and that might have contributed to that line of thinking. But it's the pact that comes with being the sort of Chelsea follower or whatever. I don't know too many Chelsea fans. I know a couple quite well who still would look at 2012 as I think one of the great moments of their life, the penalty shoot. I don't think it was diminished. I don't think it was diminished by the shootout.
No, not at all.
But it was diminished by someone getting sacked months afterwards.
But and the thing is, they were on a journey with that team. That was still Jose's team in effect.
They ran the place. But that was the thing. Of course, the theory would have been that it would have been the relationship that senior players had with ownership superseded any relationship that management had. Or sorry, that the manager had.
Yeah.
And I know what you're saying. Like, they were like de facto managers. Well, let's be honest. Is the Chelsea arc are we all just calling time until John Terry eventually comes back? That's basically.
I'm back interested then. I'm back.
You are interested.
Oh yeah, if Terry comes back, I was interested to see what Lampard would do. If Terry was manager, I'd be curious again. I'd be there'd be a genuine interest as opposed to the next very polished, very tactically adept, multilingual manager to come in and earn his 10 million.
I suppose if Terry comes back and inevitably gets binned, it means that pretty much everyone associated with Chelsea has been dumped at some stage or other by Chelsea. How many have actually left on their own? Now Lampard, but now he's been shown the door. Like, whoever leaves Chelsea on their own terms.
And that's fair enough. Like, Solskjaer is not going to leave United on his own terms. It's unlikely even Klopp will leave on his own terms. That's nobody does, and it's unrealistic. It's just the sense of inevitability.
You want a journey, Joe. You want a journey. You want the Chelsea journey to be a thing that we discuss. What about and at the start of Lampard, you see with the young lads, it did seem like they were going on some type of journey. And then they were allowed to buy players and beat Chelsea again, which is the worst thing that could have happened.
Yeah, that's it totally. Like, last year, I was really like, this is interesting, and I hope Tammy does it. Like, I've got my doubts Tammy's going to be the answer, but I hope he does. And Mount and all that stuff. It's just like the sense of when Liverpool win the league or the Champions League under Klopp, there's this sense of, my God, where's all this going to go? This is amazing. We're on to something here. This is magical. Can we keep it going?
There's a lot of emotional people writing about Liverpool as well too, Joe.
There are, but fair, I'm not a Liverpool fan.
Emotional Chelsea fans out there somewhere.
I don't know. You see, I think when they win the league under Conte or when they win the league under Jose, they're like, I wonder will he still be manager this time next year? There's no sense of this thing blossoming into, God, 2-3 years of stability. Things are going really well. Maybe a good assault on Europe. It seems to just implode. In part, I suspect, because Chelsea's such a political club and no manager feels really like they've been allowed to do the job fully, And like Tuchel, we'll talk about Tuchel later on with Rob Daly. He clashes. He clashes. He clashed at Dortmund. He clashed at Mainz. He clashed at PSG. He's going to clash at Chelsea. So there is just no chance already. There is no chance already that Tuchel and Chelsea can have even a 3-year relationship. And I think if you're a Chelsea fan, there has to be a sense of, right, so got to win the league this year. And look, that'll be fun, I guess. And maybe it's not about Chelsea fans, to be fair, but the wider public looking in, there's no sense of where's this going to go. No,
I know. Listen, I've been a bit cantankerous. Of course, it's completely correct. It's just part of the thing. It's very hard to spin a journey out of the Russian oligarch taking over your club and making it into what it is. You've already. Liverpool has managed to do it, even though they still have their American ownership, who are part of the sort of the super club plot to basically destroy the game in some shape or form.
Yeah.
But there's a bit more emotion and sentiment around the Liverpool thing. But maybe Chelsea are the perfect representation of the modern Premier League.
Oh,
maybe in fact
they are.
Maybe in fact they're the perfect poster boy for it, and they want to take us eventually towards a franchised world, it seems, some of the Super League clubs. So a club that sort of just keeps the sporting director and hires the coach every so often is sort of perfect for that. The club of the future, maybe.
Yeah, and look, it's not like they're completely unique in the way they're doing their business. Like to some degree or other, that's just the nature of the league now. But they just seem like a particularly grim example of it, and it's successful and it's working. And so, I don't know, don't you want in football still, you still want some kind of emotional bias whereby a Solskjaer gets the job when he doesn't fully deserve it, or Lampard gets the job, just because you're a legend of the club, and there's something a bit more than just money and what the board think, and there's a relationship with the fans, and it just all represents something a bit more. Where so if it goes the way Chelsea are, and if every club went that way, then I don't know. I talk to a lot of people in my age group, and they're already a little bit disenfranchised with the whole thing because of the money and how soulless it's become and sanitised and corporate and all that stuff. And I know, for a bunch of United fans, Solskjaer has reeled them back in. It has stirred something in them. It's like, oh my God, this means something. This is a continuation of some kind of story and link with the past, and this adds to the kind of tapestry of the club. And I want to see, does he maybe it blows up. Maybe he's successful, and that's amazing. Either way, I'm interested. Thomas Tuchel, good luck.
But who knows? The Chelsea cycle, Joe, is that in 6 so in 2 years' time, you're right, we're dissecting his departure, or maybe 3 years. But in around 6 months' time, it's going to be
win the league.
How he's put the smile back on the faces. How everyone's fallen in love with charismatic Thomas Tuchel and his Chelsea team.
How Kai Havertz found his joy. Look, great.
So 2 years, none of them liked them.
You have Chelsea family, because I remember we had this discussion a couple of years back where I was Chelsea in particular grimmed me out for all these reasons, and I think somebody was not impressed with us, to say the least, and thought it was an outrage.
Complained. Yeah, I
complained. Okay, so that
complained.
suggests they're pretty happy with their lot.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if they're. I said I do have some Chelsea fans in my life. I'm not sure if they're happy with their lot at the moment. And you are right. I do think it maybe it wears people down over a period of time. I mean, you can only win something for the first time once. They had their league, they had their Champions League, and I suppose what are they striving for now? Well, just to beat everyone else eventually. It's hard to get. I understand your point that I suppose you had those sort of totemic figures that the club was centered around them. Who is that character at Chelsea now that is that beloved figure? Kante maybe. Someone who's been around for a while and has had some success.
But I don't even mind if just don't fire everybody at the first sign of trouble. Don't argue with Conte, who's won your league. Let Conte build something.
But that's not what they do.
Yeah, and that's the pointlessness of it,
Yeah, it is, and as I said, it always strikes me that it's always very well sourced, the stuff that comes out. It's always there's always people behind the scenes at Chelsea. Even one of the stories today mentioned that I think it was the Athletic story that at 9:30 in the morning, after Lampard was was in for an 8 a.m. meeting. This is a classic example of how modern football works. At 9:30, they called other candidates to let them know they were unsuccessful and to thank them, thank them for their sort of efforts. As though, we all know this happens. It happens everywhere. But there's been this process going on for weeks to replace Lampard in the background, and that's what you do. It happens. Yeah.
We should move on. Kieran and Ashburn, Chelsea's boom bust model can't be criticised while they're consistently winning trophies. You'd wonder, though, whether they can attract new fans with no club identity or succession plan. I thought sacking Lampard was the right decision, but would like more stability.